Kang Tae-min stood in front of the viewport, staring at the ship that would either make his dreams come true or bankrupt him completely. The vessel floated in the docking bay of Orbital Station Meridian 7, its silver hull reflecting the station's lights. It was a Helix-class light freighter, the kind that independent traders used to haul cargo across the outer colonies. Tae-min had spent 5 long years saving every credit for this moment. Beautiful, is she not? The Vrothian dealer, Quilnix, clicked his mandibles together in what passed for a smile among his species. His 6 eyes gleamed with something Tae-min could not quite identify. The Wandering Star. Best ship I have sold all year. Tae-min walked around the ship slowly, running his hand along the hull. The metal was cold and smooth under his fingers. He had been crew on corporate freight vessels for years, always working for someone else, always following orders. This ship represented freedom, independence, his own business. "The price is too low," Tae-min said, keeping his voice steady. "A ship like this should cost twice what you are asking." Quilnix's mandibles clicked faster. "Previous owner, he needed to sell quickly. Family emergency. I give you good deal because you seem like honest human." Tae-min's instincts screamed that something was wrong. In the spacer business, deals that seemed too good usually were too good. But his bank account had exactly enough credits for this purchase and nothing else. If he walked away now, it might be another 5 years before he could afford a ship. He pulled up his datapad and reviewed the specifications again. The engines had been upgraded recently. The hull had reinforced plating. The life support system was top grade, better than what came standard on Helix-class ships. Everything checked out in the inspection reports. "I want to see inside," Tae-min said. Of course, of course." Quilnix handed him a data chip. "Docking codes. Go, look anywhere you want. I wait here." That was another red flag. Dealers usually gave grand tours pointing out every feature. Quilnix seemed eager to stay behind. Tae-min pocketed the data chip and headed toward the ship's airlock. The interior was clean, almost too clean. Most used ships had signs of their previous owners, scratches on the walls, worn seats, personal modifications. The Wandering Star looked like it had been scrubbed of all personality. The main corridor led from the airlock to the bridge, with doors branching off to crew quarters, the engine room, and the cargo bay. Tae-min checked the bridge first. The pilot's seat was comfortable, the controls responsive when he tested them. All the screens lit up properly. He ran a quick diagnostic and everything came back green. The navigation computer was newer than his datapad. The crew quarters were standard. 4 small rooms with bunks and storage. The galley had a food processor and a small table. The engine room hummed with quiet power when he opened the door. Everything seemed perfect. He saved the cargo bay for last. It was larger than he expected, taking up nearly 1/3 of the ship's interior space. The walls were lined with storage containers and cargo nets. The floor had tie-down points for securing freight. Tae-min walked deeper into the bay, his boots echoing on the metal floor. That was when he heard it, a faint humming sound different from the engine's rhythm. He stopped, listening carefully. The sound came from the back corner of the cargo bay behind a stack of empty storage containers. Tae-min moved the containers aside. Behind them, hidden against the wall, was a sleeping pod. It was the medical kind, used for long-distance travel when someone needed to be in stasis. The pod's surface was translucent, and inside he could see a figure. His heart hammered in his chest. He stepped closer, examining the pod's control panel. It was active, running on its own power supply. Inside lay an alien, unlike any species Tae-min had seen in person. The being had crystalline skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light. 4 arms were folded across its chest. Strange patterns glowed faintly beneath its skin, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Tae-min ran back to the airlock. Quilnix was still waiting outside, but when he saw Tae-min's face, his mandibles stopped clicking. "There is someone in the cargo bay," Taemin said. "In a stasis pod." Quilnix's eyes went wide, all 6 of them. "I know nothing about this. Previous owner must have—" "You are lying." Taemin's hands clenched into fists. "What is going on?" The Vrathian backed away. "I sell you ship, yes? Good price. What you find inside, not my problem. I have not bought the ship yet. But you want to, yes? You want ship very much. I see it in your face." Quilnix pulled out his datapad. "Simple transaction. You transfer credits, ship is yours. Everything on ship is yours. Clean sale." Taemin's mind raced. He should walk away. He should report this to station security. But if he did that, the ship would be impounded during the investigation. He would lose his chance to buy it, and he would probably never get his credits back from this shady dealer. "Who is in the pod?" Taemin demanded. "Not my business. Not your business. It's just cargo." Quilnix's voice took on a pleading tone. "You want ship? Yes? Take ship. Leave station. Forget about cargo. Very simple." Taemin knew he should refuse. Every rational part of his brain told him to walk away. But he had dreamed about having his own ship for 5 years. 5 years of terrible food, cramped crew quarters, and taking orders from corporate captains who did not care about their crew. He looked at his datapad, at the number showing his life savings. Then he looked at Quilnix, who was practically vibrating with anxiety. "If I buy this ship, you are gone from this station within the hour," Taemin said. "I do not want to see you again. Ever." Yes, of course. I leave immediately." Quilnix held out his datapad. "You agree to sail?" Taemin hesitated one more second. Then he pressed his thumb to the screen, authorizing the credit transfer. His life savings vanished from his account. The ownership papers for the Wandering Star appeared on his datapad. Quilnix made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. "Wonderful. Ship is yours. I go now. Good luck, human." The Vrathian scuttled away so fast that Taemin could barely track him. Within minutes, he was gone, disappeared into the station's crowds. Taemin stood alone in the docking bay, looking at his new ship. The ship he had wanted more than anything. The ship that apparently came with a mysterious alien in a stasis pod. He walked back inside and returned to the cargo bay. The pod's control panel showed a timer. 6 hours until the stasis cycle ended. 6 hours until whoever was inside woke up. Taemin sat down on the floor next to the pod, his back against the cold wall. He had wanted a ship. He had gotten a ship and apparently a whole lot of trouble to go with it. "Well," he said to the sleeping alien, "I guess we should get to know each other." The patterns under the alien's crystalline skin pulsed steadily, offering no answers. Taemin pulled up his datapad and started researching stasis pod operations. If this being was going to wake up in 6 hours, he needed to be ready. He had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. But one thing was certain. His dream of peaceful independent trading had just become very complicated. 5 hours and 30 minutes later, Taemin had moved the stasis pod to the ship's medical bay. He had read everything he could find about Centauri drift species, which was what the pod's medical readout identified the alien as. The information was limited, mostly basic biology and cultural notes. The Centauri were known for their exceptional navigation skills and their crystalline physiology. What Taemin had not found was any information about why one would be hidden in a stasis pod on a used freighter. The pod began making different sounds. The hum changed pitch, and the control panel showed the awakening sequence had started. Taemin stood back, his hand resting on the tool he had taken from the ship's emergency locker. It was not exactly a weapon, but it could work as one if needed. The pod's lid slowly opened with a hiss of released pressure. The alien inside stirred, its 4 arms moving slowly. The crystalline skin caught the medical bay's lights, throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. The being's eyes opened, large, dark eyes without visible pupils. Tae-min stepped forward carefully. "Hello, I am Tae-min. You are on my ship. You are safe." The alien's head turned toward him with jerky, disoriented movements. Then, faster than Tae-min could react, it lunged. One of its 4 arms grabbed his throat while another reached for his face. Tae-min stumbled backward, gasping, and swung the tool in his hand. It connected with the alien's shoulder, and the being hissed, releasing him. They stared at each other across the medical bay. Tae-min rubbed his throat, breathing hard. The alien crouched in a defensive position, all 4 arms spread wide. "I am not going to hurt you," Tae-min said slowly, dropping the tool. He raised his hands, palms out. "Safe. You are safe here." The alien's mouth moved, producing sounds like wind chimes. Tae-min grabbed his datapad from the counter and activated the translation software. It took a moment to calibrate, picking up the alien's language from the sounds. The datapad's speaker crackled to life. "Where is the syndicate? Where are the guards?" "There is no syndicate here," Tae-min said. "Just me. I bought this ship. You were hidden in the cargo bay." The alien's crystalline skin flickered with different colors, blues and purples, shifting rapidly. The translation software identified this as emotional distress. "You are human. Humans work with syndicates sometimes." "I do not work for anyone right now. I am independent." Tae-min kept his voice calm. "What is your name?" The alien was quiet for a long moment. The colors under its skin slowly steadied. "I am Velis, navigation specialist, former navigation specialist." "Velis. I am Tae-min, as I said. Can you tell me why you were in that pod?" Velis moved carefully to the medical bay's examination table and sat down, all 4 arms wrapping around itself. The gesture reminded Tae-min of someone trying to feel secure. The translation software made Velis's words sound flat and emotionless, but the color patterns on its skin showed fear and exhaustion. "I worked for Syndicate Exploration Vessel. We found things in deep space, rare minerals, ancient artifacts, strange creatures." Velis paused. "One day, I discover cargo we were not supposed to see. Living beings, intelligent beings, locked in cages." Tae-min felt his stomach turn. "They were trafficking sentience? Yes, Lumashi, small telepathic species from Outer Rim, very rare. Very valuable on black market." The colors on Velis's skin turned dark red. "I tried to free them. I opened cages. I sent distress signal. But Syndicate caught me before rescue could arrive." "So they put you in stasis?" "They were taking me to Prison Moon. But ship stopped at this station for repairs. Someone paid Dealer to hide me until things became quiet. But Dealer got scared. Sold ship with me inside." Velis's dark eyes fixed on Tae-min. "Now you are stuck with Syndicate fugitive. You should turn me in. Get reward." Tae-min sat down on the floor, his back against the wall. He looked at Velis, then at his datapad showing his now empty bank account. He had spent everything on this ship. Everything on a ship that came with a fugitive alien who had tried to do the right thing. "I am not going to turn you in," he said finally. Velis's skin flashed bright yellow. The translation software noted this meant surprise or disbelief. "You are human. Humans are practical, logical. Reward money would be substantial. I paid for this ship. Everything on it is mine now. That includes you, apparently." Tae-min smiled tiredly. "I do not abandon things I own. That makes no sense. I am not property. I am sentient being." "Exactly. Which means turning you in would be wrong." Tae-min stood up and checked his datapad again. "We have a bigger problem, though. Station security has flagged my ship for routine inspection in 22 hours. If they find you, we both go to prison." Velis stood as well, all 4 arms gesturing in what the software identified as agitation. "You should not have bought this ship." "Too late now." Tae-min pulled up the station map on his datapad. Can you navigate? I am Centauri Navigator, best in Syndicate Fleet. Velis said this without pride, just stating fact. Then help me get us out of here before inspection. Security blockade will stop any ship from leaving without clearance. Taemin looked at Velis. You said you were the best navigator. Can you find a way out that security does not watch? Velis moved closer to look at the data pad. Its 4 arms moved in complex patterns, like it was calculating something. Station has maintenance tunnels for repair drones. Too small for normal ships. How small? Your ship would have 15 centimeters clearance on each side. Maybe less. Velis's skin turned pale blue. It is suicide. But possible? Technically possible. Actually doing it is insane. Taemin grinned. Humans are good at insane. Can you plot the course? Velis stared at him. You would risk your new ship? Your life? For a stranger who you just met? You tried to save those Lumashi beings, right? Even though it would get you caught? Taemin held out his hand, the human gesture for agreement. That makes you good crew, and I do not abandon my crew. Velis looked at the offered hand, then carefully wrapped one of its 4 hands around it. The crystalline skin was cool and smooth. Humans are very strange. We get that a lot. Taemin headed for the door. Come on. Let us get to the bridge. We have 20 hours to prepare, and I need you to teach me everything about those maintenance tunnels. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Velis's skin gradually shifted to a soft green color. The translation software identified this as cautious hope. If we survive this, Velis said, I owe you life debt. In Centauri culture, this is sacred obligation. Let us survive first, then we can worry about debts. Taemin climbed into the pilot's seat on the bridge, his hands already moving across the controls. Tell me about these tunnels. Velis settled into the navigator's seat, all 4 arms moving across the station's holographic map that appeared above the console. Tunnel network runs throughout station's outer ring. Maintenance drones use it to reach hull breaches and failed systems. Your ship will need to maintain exact speed and angle. One mistake, and we crash into walls. Can you calculate the course? Yes, but you will need to fly it perfectly. Taemin looked at the complicated path Velis was mapping out. It twisted through the station like a snake, with dozens of tight turns and narrow passages. Any corporate pilot would have refused immediately. But Taemin had not spent 5 years dreaming about safety. He had dreamed about freedom. Plot the course, he said. I will fly it. Velis's skin flickered through several colors, doubt, worry, and finally determination. Humans really are insane. Yes, Taemin agreed cheerfully. But we are also very stubborn. Now teach me everything I need to know about Centauri navigation. We have a lot of work to do. Outside the ship, station security continued their normal routines, unaware that in Docking Bay 7, a human and an alien were planning the impossible. Taemin had wanted a ship and a quiet life as an independent trader. Instead, he had gotten a ship, an alien navigator, and the most dangerous escape plan he had ever attempted. He could not stop grinning. 3 days of traveling through empty space had created a strange routine aboard the wandering star. Taemin piloted while Velis navigated. They spoke little at first, but slowly began sharing stories. Velis explained Centauri culture while Taemin talked about growing up on Earth's orbital colonies. The escape from Meridian 7 had been terrifying and successful, but now they faced a new problem. We need supplies, Taemin said, checking the ship's inventory. Food, fuel, basic repair materials. Credits are almost gone. Velis's skin turned worried orange. Any station we dock at might scan my biometric signature. Syndicate is looking for me. We need to risk it. There is a place called Freehold Station. It is lawless, no official security. If we are careful, we can get in and out quickly. They approached Freehold Station 6 hours later. It hung in space like a massive wheel, spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. Ships of all sizes and conditions crowded around it. Tae Min had been here once before, years ago. It was the kind of place where people did not ask questions. The docking procedure was simple. No scans, no customs, just a fee paid in untraceable credits. Tae Min paid from his dwindling funds and guided the wandering star into a grimy docking bay. "Stay close to me," Tae Min told Velis. "Do not talk to anyone unless necessary. We buy what we need and leave." Velis had wrapped itself in a long cloak that hid its 4 arms, though its crystalline skin still caught the light strangely. They entered the station's market district, a chaotic maze of shops and stalls. Merchants shouted in dozens of languages. The air smelled of strange foods, fuel, and something chemical that made Tae Min's eyes water. Tae Min led them to a shop that sold ship supplies. The owner, a large alien with too many tentacles, barely looked at them as Tae Min listed what they needed. The prices were high, but Tae Min had expected that. He was counting out credits when he noticed Velis had gone completely still. "What is wrong?" Tae Min asked quietly. "Hunters, 3 of them. Across the market." Velis's voice through the translator was tight with fear. "They are syndicate specialists. Looking for me." Tae Min casually turned his head. 3 figures in dark armor moved through the crowd, scanning people with handheld devices. One of them was checking everyone with unusual physiology. Their leader was taller than the others, with a helmet covered in marks that Tae Min recognized as kill counts. "We leave now," Tae Min said, abandoning the supplies. "Back to the ship." They had taken maybe 10 steps when one of the hunters turned in their direction. The device in its hand began beeping. The hunter's head snapped toward them. "Run!" Tae Min shouted. They ran. Behind them, the hunters gave chase, shouting commands in their harsh language. The market crowd scattered, people diving for cover. Tae Min grabbed Velis's hand and pulled them down a side corridor. Energy weapon fire scorched the wall behind them. "This way!" Velis pointed with one of its free arms toward a narrower passage. They ducked into the passage just as another energy blast tore through the space where they had been standing. Tae Min's heart hammered in his chest. He had done militia training years ago, basic combat and survival skills, but he had never expected to use them like this. The corridor opened into a cargo loading area. Huge containers stood in rows, creating a maze. Tae Min pulled Velis behind a container just as the hunters entered the area. "Spread out," the leader's voice echoed. "The Centauri cannot hide that signature. Find it." Tae Min looked around desperately. 3 hunters, all armed and armored. He had a basic plasma cutter from the ship's toolkit, and Velis had nothing. This was not a fight they could win directly. His eyes fell on a control panel nearby. It regulated the atmosphere recyclers for this section of the station. An idea formed in his mind, crazy and dangerous. "Can you create a distraction?" he whispered to Velis. "What kind of distraction?" "Loud noise. Anything to get them looking the other way for 30 seconds. Velis's skin flashed uncertain yellow, but it nodded. One of its 4 arms reached into the cloak and pulled out a piece of the stasis pod's power cell. "I kept this. If I overload it, we'll make substantial explosion." "Perfect. On my signal." Tae Min crept toward the control panel, keeping low. The hunters were getting closer, their scanners beeping steadily. He reached the panel and pulled off the cover. Inside were dozens of controls and connections. He found what he needed, the emergency vent system and the nitrogen coolant lines. "Now!" he hissed to Velis. Velis threw the power cell. It sailed through the air and exploded against a far container in a flash of light and sound. The hunters immediately turned, weapons raised, moving toward the explosion. Tae Min's fingers flew over the controls. He rerouted the nitrogen coolant through the atmosphere vents and triggered an emergency purge. Cold gas erupted from vents throughout the cargo area. The temperature dropped instantly. fog rolling across the floor. The hunters disappeared into the sudden whiteout, confused and shouting. Taemin had maybe minutes before they adapted. "Come on!" He grabbed Velis and they ran through the fog. But the lead hunter was faster than Taemin expected. A figure burst from the fog ahead of them, weapon raised. Taemin shoved Velis aside and lunged forward with his plasma cutter. It was not designed for combat, but the hot cutting blade scored across the hunter's armor. The hunter staggered back, surprised. Taemin pressed his advantage, fighting with a desperate ferocity he did not know he possessed. The hunter was better trained and better equipped, but Taemin fought dirty, going for joints in the armor, throwing containers to block attacks, using every militia trick he remembered. Behind them, Velis had picked up a piece of metal debris and was fending off another hunter with all four arms working in coordination. The Centauri moved with surprising grace, its crystalline body bending in ways that made the hunter's attacks miss by centimeters. The third hunter appeared from the fog, weapon charging for a killing shot at Velis. Taemin saw it happening in slow motion. Without thinking, he grabbed a container of what looked like industrial cleaning solution and threw it. The container burst against the hunter's weapon just as it fired. The energy discharge mixed with the chemicals, creating a small explosion that threw the hunter backward. "Ship! Now!" Taemin yelled. They ran for the exit. Behind them, the lead hunter recovered and raised its weapon. The shot hit the wall next to Taemin's head, so close he felt the heat. They burst through the exit and into the main corridor, running full speed. The docking bay was ahead. Taemin saw their ship, the Wandering Star, exactly where they had left it. They were going to make it. Then alarms began blaring throughout the station. The lead hunter had called for the docking bay to be locked down. Heavy blast doors began closing. "We will not make it!" Velis shouted. "Yes, we will!" Taemin put on a final burst of speed. They dove through the narrowing gap just as the doors slammed shut behind them. Taemin felt the rush of air as the door nearly caught his leg. They scrambled up the ship's boarding ramp. "Get us out of here!" Taemin shouted as he reached the bridge. Velis was already at the navigation console. Taemin threw himself into the pilot's seat and fired the engines. The ship lurched away from the dock without waiting for proper clearance. Behind them, he saw the blast doors starting to open again as the hunters forced their way through. But the Wandering Star was already clear of the docking bay, accelerating hard into open space. Taemin pushed the engines to maximum. The station's defensive weapons activated, but the ship was small and fast. They dodged between other vessels, using them as cover. "Can we jump to FTL?" Taemin asked. Velis's hands moved over the navigation controls, calculating. "Yes, course ready." "Do it!" The stars stretched into lines of light as the FTL drive activated. The Wandering Star leaped away from Freehold Station, leaving the hunters behind. In the sudden quiet of FTL travel, Taemin and Velis sat in their seats, breathing hard. Taemin looked at his hands. They were shaking. "That was," Velis started. "Insane," Taemin finished. "I was going to say impressive." Velis's skin had turned an interested purple color. "In syndicate files, humans are classified as low-tech species, not particularly dangerous. But you created weapons from simple materials. You fought trained hunters. Humans are good at making things up as we go," Taemin said. He checked the ship's systems. Something was wrong. The FTL drive was showing red warnings. "Velis, we have a problem." Velis looked at its console, and its skin went pale white. "The hunters damaged the FTL drive with their last shot. We are in FTL now, but when we drop out, the drive will fail. How long can we stay in FTL? Maybe 10 minutes. Then we drop out wherever we are." Taemin pulled up the star charts. They were heading into an asteroid field. If they dropped out there with no FTL drive, they would be sitting targets when the hunters caught up. "We need to fix the drive," he said. "Impossible. We need parts we do not have. Nearest repair station is weeks away at normal speed." Taman stared at the asteroid field on the screen. Slowly, an idea began to form. Another crazy, impossible idea. What if we get the parts from the asteroids? The FTL drive failed exactly when Velas predicted, dropping the wandering star into normal space in the middle of an asteroid field. Rocks the size of small moons drifted in all directions, some moving slowly, others spinning fast enough to destroy a ship on impact. "You want to mine asteroids," Velas said flatly, "while syndicate hunters chase us, while the ship has no working FTL drive. This is your plan." Yes, Taman was already suiting up in the ship's EVA gear. Extravehicular activity, spacewalking. "You said the FTL drive needs rare metals to repair, right? Those metals are in these asteroids. Mining requires time, equipment, safety procedures. We have mining charges in the cargo bay from the previous owner. I know basic mining from my militia training." Taman sealed his helmet and checked the oxygen levels. "You keep the ship moving through the field. I go out and get what we need." Velas's skin cycled through several colors rapidly: doubt, fear, and finally something that looked like determination. "This is the most insane thing I have ever heard, even for a human. Will it work? Theoretically. If you can extract the right materials. If I can keep the ship from being hit. If the hunters do not find us. If you do not die in space." Velas moved to the pilot's console. Too many ifs. Life is full of ifs. Taman headed for the airlock. "Let us make this one work." The airlock cycled open and Taman stepped into space. The silence was absolute, broken only by his own breathing inside the helmet. The asteroid field surrounded him like a stone ocean, rocks drifting in their ancient dance through the void. He activated his suit's magnetic boots and walked along the ship's hull to the cargo bay door. Inside, he found the mining charges, small explosive devices used to break apart rock and expose the valuable ores inside. He had used similar ones during militia training exercises on asteroid bases. "I am reading 3 asteroids within range that show correct mineral composition." Velas's voice came through his helmet comm. "Sending coordinates to your suit display." Taman pushed off from the ship with his suit's small thrusters. Moving in zero gravity took skill and practice. He aimed for the nearest asteroid, a spinning chunk of rock about 50 meters across. As he got closer, he could see veins of metal running through the stone. Exactly what they needed. He landed on the asteroid's surface and anchored himself with his magnetic boots. Working quickly, he placed mining charges in a pattern around the richest metal vein. His hands moved with practiced efficiency despite the bulky gloves. "Charges set," he reported. "I am moving clear." "Wait," Velas's voice was sharp. "Sensors show ships entering the asteroid field. 3 of them. The hunters found us." Taman pushed away from the asteroid and triggered the charges remotely. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but he saw the flash of light and felt the vibration through his boots. The asteroid broke apart, exposing the metal core. Chunks of rock and metal scattered in all directions. "We do not have time for careful mining anymore," Taman said. "I am grabbing what I can. Get ready to move fast." He used his suit's small thrusters to maneuver between the spinning debris. His gloved hands grabbed chunks of the exposed metal, stuffing them into his suit's cargo pouches. The metal was exactly what they needed: rare alloys that could be processed into FTL drive components. "Hunters are getting closer," Velas warned. "They are scanning the asteroid field, looking for us." "How long until they find us?" "Minutes, maybe less." Taman pushed toward another asteroid, larger than the first. He did not have time for careful placement of charges. He stuck 3 charges in a cluster and moved away quickly. The explosion was bigger this time, breaking the asteroid into dozens of large fragments. An energy weapon blast suddenly lit up the space near him. The hunters had spotted him. "They see you!" Velas shouted through the comm. "Get back to the ship!" "Not yet!" Taemin grabbed more metal chunks, his movements desperate now. "We need more material." The wandering star suddenly moved, its engines flaring. Velis brought the ship between Taemin and the hunters, using it as a shield. More weapon fire hit the ship's hull, scorching the metal, but not penetrating the reinforced plating. "Velis, what are you doing?" Taemin demanded. "Protecting my captain!" Velis's voice was strained with concentration. "This human stubbornness is contagious." The ship moved through the asteroid field with impossible grace. Velis was using the asteroids as cover, spinning the ship around rocks and through gaps that seemed too small. The hunters tried to follow, but they were not as skilled. One of them clipped an asteroid and went spinning away, damaged. Taemin used the distraction to reach a third asteroid. This one was pure metal, exactly what they needed. He placed his last mining charges and detonated them. The asteroid shattered into valuable fragments. "I have enough," Taemin called. "Coming back!" He pushed off toward the ship, his suit's thrusters at maximum. Behind him, the two remaining hunter ships maneuvered around asteroids, trying to get a clear shot. Energy blasts filled the space around him, so close he could see them reflect off his helmet. The Wandering Star's cargo bay door was open. Taemin aimed for it, calculating his trajectory. He was going to make it. He had to make it. Then one of the hunter's shots hit a nearby asteroid. The explosion sent debris flying in all directions. A chunk of rock, spinning fast, was coming straight at Taemin. He tried to dodge, but in the zero gravity, there was nowhere to go. The rock hit him hard, spinning him out of control. His suit's thrusters fired randomly, pushing him away from the ship instead of toward it. His oxygen tank alarm began beeping. The impact had damaged something. "Taemin!" Velis's voice was panicked. "Your trajectory is wrong! You are drifting away!" Taemin fought to control his spin, but the suit's controls were not responding properly. He could see the ship getting smaller. His oxygen was leaking. The hunters were getting closer. Then something incredible happened. The cargo bay door moved. No, not the door. Someone was in the cargo bay. Velis. The Centauri had put on a spare EVA suit and was launching itself toward Taemin. "What are you doing?" Taemin shouted. "You have never done spacewalking before." "Learning now!" Velis's four arms spread wide, all of them clutching safety tethers. The Centauri moved through space with surprising grace, its crystalline body catching the light from distant stars. Velis reached Taemin and grabbed him with two of its arms. The other two arms secured the safety tether. Together, they began pulling back toward the ship. The hunters were still firing, but Velis maneuvered them behind asteroids, using the cover just like it had with the ship. They reached the cargo bay with Taemin's oxygen at 3%. They tumbled inside and Velis slammed the door controls. The bay door closed and atmosphere flooded back in. Taemin collapsed on the floor, gulping air as his helmet automatically opened. "We need to finish the repair," Velis said, already moving to the engineering station. "Hunters will not wait." Taemin forced himself to stand. His body ached from the impact, but there was no time to rest. They dumped the metal chunks he had collected onto the engineering table. Velis's four hands began sorting through them with incredible speed. "These pieces can work," Velis said, "but we need to process them, shape them, install them in the FTL drive, all while the hunters are attacking. You handle the processing. I will pilot." Taemin ran to the bridge and threw himself into the pilot's seat. The two hunter ships were closing in, weapons firing continuously. He pushed the ship's engines hard, weaving between asteroids. The ship's shields were taking damage, alarms blaring. In the engineering bay, Velis worked with all four arms. The Centauri used tools Taemin did not recognize, shaping the raw metal with techniques that seemed more art than engineering. Velis's crystalline skin glowed brighter as it worked, the internal patterns pulsing with concentration. "I need 15 minutes, Velis called. "I will give you 20, Taemin responded, throwing the ship into a sharp turn that made the hull groan. The next 15 minutes were the longest of Tae-min's life. He flew the wandering star through the asteroid field like it was an extension of his own body. Every trick he had learned, every bit of piloting skill he used. The hunters were good, but they were following doctrine, flying by rules and training. Tae-min made up his own rules. He flew through gaps that should have been impossible. He used asteroids as weapons, his ship's wake sending rocks spinning into the hunters' paths. He even flew backwards at one point, his rear thrusters pointed at the hunters like improvised weapons. "Done!" Velis shouted. "FTL drive is operational, but it is not perfect. One jump only. Maybe." "That is all we need." Tae-min pulled up the navigation computer. "Plot a course. Anywhere away from here." Velis's hands flew over the console. "Course plotted. Jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines. The wandering star leaped into FTL, leaving the hunters and the asteroid field behind. The ship shuddered and groaned, the jury-rigged FTL drive complaining but holding together. After several long minutes, they dropped out of FTL near a small ice moon in neutral space. The ship's systems were failing one by one, but they were alive. They had escaped. Tae-min and Velis sat in their seats, neither speaking for a long moment. Then Tae-min started laughing. He could not help it. They had done the impossible. They had mined asteroids while being shot at, repaired a FTL drive in the middle of a battle, and escaped some of the most dangerous hunters in the galaxy. "Humans," Velis said, its skin showing colors Tae-min had never seen before, "are absolutely insane." "Yes," Tae-min agreed, still laughing. "Yes, we are." 2 weeks on the ice moon gave them time to properly repair the wandering star and, more importantly, time to talk. The ship sat in a small valley between frozen hills. Its systems slowly being rebuilt with salvaged materials and Velis's engineering knowledge combined with Tae-min's creative problem-solving. During the long repair sessions, they shared stories. Tae-min talked about growing up on Earth's orbital colonies, about working terrible jobs on corporate freight ships, about saving every credit for 5 years just to buy his own vessel. Velis spoke of the Centauri home world, of learning navigation among the crystal forests, of the horror of discovering the syndicate's trafficking operation. "The Lumashi are still there," Velis said one evening as they worked on the ship's power systems. "In cages, being sold to collectors across the galaxy, and nobody will stop it because the syndicate has powerful friends in the Galactic Council." Tae-min was quiet for a moment, his hands continuing to work on the wiring. "Where exactly is this trafficking facility?" Velis's skin flashed warning red. "No, I know what you are thinking. It is suicide." "Just tell me where it is." "Kurian Nebula. Hidden base inside an old mining station. Heavily guarded. Impossible to approach without being detected." Velis moved to stand in front of Tae-min. "We barely survived 3 hunters. The facility has dozens, plus automated defenses, plus the syndicate fleet nearby. So we need help." Tae-min set down his tools. "We need a team." "Nobody will help. It is too dangerous." "Then we find people who are already dangerous." 3 days later, they were back at Freehold Station. Tae-min had sent messages ahead, calling in old favors and making careful inquiries. They met their potential team members in a quiet corner of the station's bar district. Park Hae-in arrived first. She was small and fierce, with quick hands and quicker eyes. Her specialty was technology, hacking, breaking security systems, making computers do things they were not supposed to do. "You really want to hit a syndicate facility?" Hae-in asked, sliding into the booth. "That is bold. I like bold. Also, the syndicate hurt people I care about. When do we start?" Cho Woo-sung came next. He was older than the others, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands, a former soldier who had become a medic. He owed Tae-min a life debt from years ago, when Tae-min had helped him escape from a corporate prison. "This is the favor you are calling in?" Woo-sung shook his head, but smiled. Fair enough. I am in. Someone needs to keep you alive. The last to arrive was Kim Da-eun. She was a pilot and navigator with a reputation for taking jobs others refused. Her family had been destroyed by syndicate operations years ago. When she heard what they were planning, her eyes went hard. "I will fly anything you need," Da-eun said. "Where you point, I go. But I want something in return. When this is over, I want evidence, proof of what the syndicate does, proof that cannot be ignored." "That is the plan," Taemin confirmed. "Free the Lumashi and expose the whole operation to the galaxy." Over the next week, they planned. Hae-in found detailed layouts of the facility through her contacts in the information trade. Woo-sung prepared medical supplies for the Lumashi, who would likely be in poor health. Da-eun calculated approach vectors through the nebula's energy fields. Velis plotted exact coordinates and timing. Taemin coordinated it all, fitting the pieces together like a puzzle. The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Hae-in would hack into the facility's systems and create openings in the security. Daeyeon would fly a distraction pattern with a rented ship, while the Wandering Star approached from a different angle. Woo-sung would handle the Lumashi once they were freed. Velis would navigate and fight if needed. Taemin would coordinate from the bridge and adapt the plan as things inevitably went wrong. Because things always went wrong. They approached the Korean Nebula 2 weeks later. The nebula was beautiful and deadly, filled with colorful gas clouds that interfered with sensors and communications. Perfect place to hide an illegal operation. "Facility is ahead," Velis said from the navigation station. "I am detecting patrol ships, 4 of them." "Hae-in, can you mask our approach?" Taemin asked. In the co-pilot seat, Hae-in's hands danced over a custom console she had installed. "Working on it. Their systems are old. I can make us look like a supply freighter. Should buy us a few minutes." Daeyeon's voice came over the comm from her rented ship. "Starting distraction run now. Let me know when you need me to be really annoying." The Wandering Star moved deeper into the nebula, following Velis's careful navigation through the gas clouds. The facility appeared on their screens, a converted mining station, old and scarred but with new weapons and shields bolted onto the structure. "We are through their outer sensors," Hae-in reported. "They think we are the supply ship, but the real supply ship will arrive in 20 minutes. After that, they will know something is wrong." 20 minutes to get in, free the Lumashi, and get out," Taemin said. "Simple." Everyone in the bridge laughed nervously, because nothing about this was simple. They docked at a cargo port that Hae-in had unlocked remotely. The team moved quickly through the facility, following the path Velis had memorized from their time working for the syndicate. The corridors were dark and cold, lit by emergency lighting. Guards patrolled, but Hae-in had hacked their communication system, sending them false reports that kept them away from the team's location. They found the holding area deep in the facility. Behind energy barriers were dozens of Lumashi, small, delicate beings that glowed with soft bioluminescence. They looked weak and scared. "Woo-sung, you are up," Taemin said. The medic moved forward with his equipment, checking the Lumashi's health. "They are malnourished and stressed, but they can travel if we are careful." Hae-in worked on the energy barriers, her tools and software breaking through the syndicate's security. One by one, the barriers fell. The Lumashi huddled together, their telepathic voices creating strange harmonies that only Velis could partially understand. "They are asking if this is real," Velis translated. "If they are truly being freed." "Tell them yes," Taemin said. "Tell them they are going home." That was when the alarm started blaring. "The real supply ship arrived early," Hae-in cursed. "The facility knows we are here." Footsteps echoed in the corridors. Lots of footsteps. Guards were coming from all directions. "Get the Lumashi to the ship," Taemin ordered. "Woo-sung, take point. Hae-in, stay with them and keep doors open." Woo-sung and Hae-in began leading the Lumashi back through the corridors. Tai-min and Velis stayed behind to hold off the guards. Weapon fire filled the hallways as Syndicate security teams converged on their position. Tai-min fought with the desperation of someone protecting something precious. Every shot, every movement was calculated to buy more time for the Lumashi to escape. Beside him, Velis fought with all four arms, moving with a fluid grace that made the Centauri look like a crystalline warrior from ancient stories. They fell back slowly, defending each corridor and doorway. Tai-min lost track of how many guards they faced. His weapon's power cell was nearly depleted. His body was screaming with exhaustion, but they had to hold. "Everyone is on the ship!" Hae-in's voice crackled over the comm. "Get out of there!" "Easier said than done," Tai-min shouted back as another wave of guards appeared. Velis grabbed Tai-min with two arms and pulled him into a side corridor. "This way! Emergency escape route!" They ran through maintenance tunnels that Velis somehow still remembered. Behind them, the guards gave chase. They burst into the docking bay just as the Wandering Star's engines started warming up. "Wait for us!" Tai-min yelled. Da-eun's voice came over the comm. "Hurry! Their fighters are launching!" They sprinted across the docking bay and up the boarding ramp. The doors closed behind them as weapon fire scorched the hull. Tai-min threw himself into the pilot seat and punched the engines. The Wandering Star tore away from the station. "Da-eun, we need that distraction now!" Tai-min called. "On it!" Da-eun's rented ship suddenly appeared, flying straight at the station's fighter launch bay. At the last second, she fired her entire missile payload into the bay and veered away. The explosions blocked the fighters from launching, but there was still one problem, a big one. "There is a Syndicate battlecruiser approaching," Velis reported. "It will intercept us before we can jump to FTL." Tai-min looked at the massive ship appearing on the sensors. It outgunned them 100 times over. There was no way to fight it, no way to outrun it. Then Hae-in spoke up. "Unless I can convince it, we are not here." "What?" "I copied their entire security system when I hacked in, including their ship identification codes." Hae-in's hands moved frantically across her console. "If I can make us look like a Syndicate patrol ship, they might not fire." "Might." "Do it," Tai-min said. The battlecruiser closed in, weapons charging. On the Wandering Star, everyone held their breath. Then the cruiser's targeting systems went inactive. Hae-in's hack had worked. The cruiser thought they were friendlies. They flew past the massive ship, trying to look casual and official. The moment they were clear, Tai-min activated the FTL drive. The stars stretched, and they were gone. Behind them, the Syndicate facility had a problem bigger than escaped prisoners. Hae-in had set up automatic transmissions that were broadcasting evidence across every major news network in the galaxy. Videos of the Lumashi in cages, financial records of the trafficking operation, communications showing Galactic Council officials taking bribes. Everything exposed. 3 months later, the crew of the Wandering Star sat in a conference room on a neutral station. The Lumashi had been returned home. The Syndicate was facing sanctions and arrests across dozens of systems. The media storm continued. They had been offered rewards, job opportunities, commendations. Park Hae-in had been recruited by 3 different tech corporations. Cho Woo-sung had been asked to lead a medical research team. Kim Da-eun had multiple offers from legitimate shipping companies. Velis had been invited to become head navigator for the Centauri fleet. Tai-min had been offered a corporate position with a salary that made his years of saving seem silly. They all said no. "So what now?" Woo-sung asked. Tai-min looked at his crew, his friends, the people who had risked everything for beings they did not even know. "I started this just wanting a ship. A simple trading business, nothing complicated." Everyone laughed. "But I think maybe we are better at complicated," Tai-min continued. "What if we made this official? Wandering Star Independent Services. We take the jobs nobody else will take. The impossible ones." "The crazy ones," Velis added. The ones that matter, Da-un said quietly. I am in, Hai-in said immediately. Me too, Wusung nodded. Velus's crystalline skin shifted to a warm gold color that Taemin had learned meant happiness. I suppose I am already part of this ship. As you said, you bought me with it. That is not how that works, Taemin protested, but he was smiling. Sure it is. Humans do not abandon their crew, remember? You said that. I am crew. 6 months later, the Wandering Star was already legendary in certain circles. The ship that freed the Lumashi, the crew that did the impossible. They had completed a dozen missions, each more improbable than the last. Rescues, exposures, interventions, jobs that mattered. On the bridge, Taemin sat in his pilot's seat while Velus plotted their next course. Behind them, the rest of the crew prepared for departure. They were heading to a system where corporate mining operations were exploiting indigenous populations. Someone needed to stop it. Someone needed to help. You know, Velus said, its 4 hands moving across the navigation console. When that dealer sold you this ship with me hidden inside, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen. And now? Taemin asked. Velus's skin showed a complex pattern of colors. Joy, contentment, anticipation. Now I think humans have a saying about this, about how the worst deals sometimes lead to the best outcomes. They do. Taemin confirmed. But I think I have a better one. What is that? Sometimes you go to buy a ship and you end up buying a family instead. Velus was quiet for a moment. Then its skin brightened. That is very human. Sentimental and impractical. Yes, I like it. The Wandering Star's engines hummed to life. The stars awaited. There was always another impossible job, another person who needed help, another wrong that needed to be made right, and they were ready.